A serious issue, I think, Mr. Speaker, just to be clear. The Telegraph are reporting that a police manhunt has been launched for a second asylum seeker mistakenly freed from prison. The question is, Mr. Speaker, can you advise me on how I can ask the Justice Secretary whether he was aware of this when I asked him about it repeatedly in Prime Minister's question?
You want to? No. You put it on the record, right? Let's just move on. Front bench change over.
That was Deputy Prime Minister's question time. You will have noticed that James Cartledge, standing in for Kemi Badenoch, used all 6 questions to ask whether it was possible that there were any other migrants who had, asylum seekers who had been wrongly freed from prison. Now, we were all in the studio wondering why that was. But it has now been reported by several news sources that a manhunt is underway for a second asylum seeker wrongly freed from prison, an Algerian man, 24, accidentally released from Wandsworth in South London today.
And we heard James Cartledge there in a point of order at the end of Prime Minister's questions, put that on the record, wrapping up this session of Prime Minister's questions. The first 6 questions asking David Lammy whether he knew of anyone released. It didn't appear that he did.
We are going to go straight to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who has been watching the drama unfold from right inside the House of Commons. Catherine, I think as you've been running across to Westminster Hall, you will have heard about James Cartledge's point of order.
Yes, it's quite extraordinary, this, because before PMQs, I thought they'd probably talk about the budget, the cost of living crisis. In fact, it was only Daisy Cooper, the deputy Lib Dem leader, who mentioned that, saying which is fairer to tax struggling families or the big banks. But it was very curious, or so it seemed, the approach that James Cartledge, the Shadow Defence Secretary in place of Kemi Badenoch today, took with David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary. First, he asked about the fact that he had not personally apologised to the family of the 14-year-old girl assaulted by Hadish Kabatu, the man who was accidentally released a couple of weeks ago, hunted down and finally deported. David Lammy said, well, I did apologise on the floor of the House. But then James Cartledge used all 5 remaining questions. I was writing in my notebook 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you reassure the House that no other asylum seeker offender has accidentally been let out of prison? David Lammy was completely and utterly furious, and he did everything 5 times but answer the question. He blamed the previous government. He said it was shameful that the prison system had been left in the state that it had. And it left us all wondering why. What on earth was going on? What did James Cartledge know that we didn't? Or what did David Lammy know? And we now hear, just in the last few minutes, in fact, that somebody else has been accidentally released. It's almost beyond belief. So now the whole of Prime Minister's questions make sense. There will now be a huge focus, and here we go again, a manhunt for a man who should not be on the streets. The other thing that struck me was there was the curious incident of David Lammy's poppy, or rather David Lammy's missing poppy. He didn't have one at the beginning of PMQs. Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, tried to pass him one. He managed to get one during PMQs, but rather embarrassing, just a few days from Remembrance Sunday.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private internet access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private internet access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Catherine Forster, thanks very much for all of that live from Westminster Hall. Well, let's get some breaking reaction now on that news that broke during Prime Minister's questions of this accidental release. Delighted to be joined in the studio by the Labour MP for Hales-Owen, Alex Ballinger, and the Shadow Science Secretary, Julia Lopez. Alex, before we get to any viewer questions, just your reaction to this frankly astonishing news.
I mean, it's if it is the case and we're just hearing this breaking news, it seems to be a massive failure by the prison system again, only a few days after a massive failure with the release of the last asylum seeker. One person accidentally released is far too many. 2 people is clearly a big problem. I will say the system has been broken for a long time. Under the last government, there were 17 people accidentally released every month, so it's not a new issue. I hope the investigation that's been launched by the Deputy Prime Minister on the last case will fix some of these tougher regulations that have been introduced. They clearly haven't worked in this case, so we need to be looking very closely to ensure this doesn't happen again.
And Julia Lopez from the Conservatives, the Justice Secretary, he was in the chamber. We only learned about this a few moments ago. So he didn't know, presumably, and that's fair enough, presumably.
Well, it's classic calamity Lammy, isn't it? And your viewers will have picked up that he refused very clearly to answer the question, I think 5 times. He's put a lot of personal capital into solving this issue. It's only a couple of weeks. All he had to answer was he confident that in a couple of weeks there hadn't been any further releases, and he wasn't able to answer. And instead of actually dealing with that directly, he chose to sling mud, got very agitated in the chair. Now, I appreciate that these things are always...
Well, hang on, Julia Lopez, because he made the point. He says, we inherited a system from you, Lord, a prison system in absolute chaos. You wouldn't deny that that is the case. We
had a major prison building programme underway, and unfortunately, during the pandemic, that got hit. And so whilst we would have been delivering 20,000 extra prison places by now, unfortunately that did get delayed, and that is a challenge. But Labour's solution on this was early release. And they have not been able to get a hold on the prison system at the same time as they're not getting a hold on the borders. And this combination of factors is leading to absolute chaos there. And as I say, the Deputy Prime Minister placed a lot of political capital into getting this sorted. Apparently he hit the roof, he briefs out that he hit the roof, that this wouldn't happen again, and he was not able to assure people that there are not serious prisoners placing people in danger anymore.
Alex, we had a message in from Juna, who was listening intently to those first questions to David Lammy, and it was strange listening to it, because it felt a bit like Groundhog Day, just the same question again and again. Juna says, David Lammy, it's your job to know. Stop blaming others if you can't do it. Just say.
Well, of course, it's breaking news. None of us in the studio knew the details. It may well be that David Lammy didn't know the details because he hadn't been briefed yet. So I think he answered the question appropriately. Julia was talking about prison places. They built 500 prison places over the last 14 years. Our plan will build an additional 14,000. We built 28,000 prison places under the last Labour government. The reason the prisons are so overcrowded, the reasons we're having so many accidental releases is because of the failures we inherited. Now, we've launched an investigation. That investigation, I hope, should also look at this other disaster that's happened. Things clearly need to improve, but we are where we are because of the situation.
Why does a lack of prison places necessarily mean that there are accidental releases. I can see why it means that there's trouble in terms of finding places for new prisoners.
Yeah.
But why would a lack of prison places mean that people are accidentally releasing prisoners?
I mean, clearly, this is more than just prison places. So there has been a failure in the system at that point. But we have to look at it across the piece. We have overcrowded prisons. We have people that are stretched to the breaking point within the prison system. We hear that from everyone we speak to. It's not just the prison system. The policing system has been underfunded and under-resourced, and other public services are facing the same challenges. We're fixing it. This case is appalling. It's absolutely awful. I hope that investigation brings more resources into preventing it happen again. But we have to take into account the context as well.
Julia, you're fighting to get in there.
Well, no, I mean, everything that Labour does is making everything worse. And I go back to this as a borders issue as well as a prison issue.
On the borders issue, because there is some news that has broken on that particular issue today. The man who re-entered the UK by small boat after removal to France, and then he came back again. He has been deported this morning.
Laura, we're meant to be grateful that they've managed to deport somebody that should have not been here in the first place, and then came back again under a scheme that we're meant to be applauding.
But you cannot say that you left our borders in a secure condition.
This only happened because the Prime Minister's question was coming up, and there's probably somebody in the Home Office has gone, get this guy out of the country. The news broke at 10 to 12. If you want to get anything done in this country, you've just got to make sure that you have Prime Minister's questions looming, because that's the only time when anything happens in this country.
But to return to the breaking news that we have just had, first reported, I think, by The Telegraph, said, of course, by James Cartledge, across the dispatch boxes there in Prime Minister's questions. Wandsworth Prison, this sex offender has been accidentally released from. It seems that Wandsworth Prison has had a lot of problems specifically. This is the same prison where the accused Iraqi spy sort of clung on the back of a lorry and managed to escape during your time in power. I mean, this is a prison that's had a lot of problems.
Well, I mean, the prison system has been a challenge. I wouldn't deny that. This is why we had a major prison building programme underway. As I say, that got hit by the pandemic. That is regrettable. I'm not going to, walk away from that responsibility. And we were putting a lot of investment into it. I don't know enough about the cultural issues within Wandsworth Prison to be able to provide any detailed comment on that particular aspect.
Alex, what do you say about the borders here? Because, of course, perhaps there wouldn't be such chaos in the prison system if we didn't have thousands upon thousands of people arriving on small boats on our shores, going on, in many cases, to commit crime, to commit violent crime, to commit sexual crime, ending up in the prisons, and then being accidentally released. I mean, 2 of these people have now been accidentally released.
I mean, the borders are a serious problem, and our new Home Secretary that's just come in is taking a very hard line on the small boats and on illegal immigration generally.
What does that actually mean in practice?
We've seen, I think, an example of a success of the returns deal to France. The person that did come back was immediately or very shortly returned to France. That is a deterrent. People will not try it again. It costs thousands of pounds to make that trip. And this is on top of 35,000 people being deported, including more than 5,000 foreign national offenders. And there are lots of other things that the government is working very hard to reduce the number of illegal immigrants coming to the country. It's a lot of work to do. We're not done yet, but it's an important step.
So, Alex, to anyone watching or listening, what can this government do to reassure people that there are not going to be very dangerous people, more very dangerous people, accidentally released from our prison system? It's a threat and it's a danger to us all.
So this, of course, again, appears to be a disaster. The most important thing right now is the manhunt, that the police can catch this individual, this criminal that has escaped from prison. I'm sure all of resources will be given to the police in order that they can do that.
I mean, Julia Lopez, you can't ask for fairer than that, can you? I mean, David Lammy does not run Wandsworth Prison.
Gloria, in the context here, where the Deputy Prime Minister, one of the most senior politicians in the country, was meant to have got a grip of something, you would think for at least the time that this issue was in the news, they would have everybody, all hands to the pump, making sure that there weren't any things going wrong. So this is a time when there is high levels of attention, official level, on this issue. And even in that context, things have gone wrong.
It is extraordinary, isn't it, that the Shadow Defence Secretary knows more about what's going on in our prison estate than the actual Justice Secretary. How have we got to a position where, during Deputy Prime Minister's questions, James Cartledge, of all people, seems to understand more about the prison estate than David Lammy, the man who's nominally in charge of the prison estate?
Well, clearly this was breaking news, and he had a tip-off from somewhere.
Nobody tipped off the Deputy Prime Minister.
I know, it's regrettable.
Well, hang on. Well, we don't know that. The Telegraph is a Conservative supporting newspaper. They may have tipped off.
I don't think they were the ones that broke it, actually. I think it was Sky.
Oh, OK. I stand corrected, but it is possible that journalists tip off. Tories. There are Labour supporting journalists.
Sorry, but where do the journalists get the news from? We all work in the media. We know how journalism works, right? You talk to people who are involved at the operational level. Someone from Wandsworth Prison will have told whichever journalist it was, and props to the journalist who discovered this story.
But why on earth? But who knows about that?
Has no one told the Deputy PM? Exactly.
Well, that's a question that none of us can answer, to be fair. But I guess a wider question, a more practical question is, what does happen to the person who is supposed to be running Wandsworth Prison? Do either of you have views on that?
Well, clearly something has gone badly wrong here, and I think there needs to be some accountability. It's not my role as an MP, but I hope an investigation will be done and the proper measures are taken.
Do you think that the problem is the person running Wandsworth Prison? Because I understand the previous accidental release wasn't Wandsworth Prison. It was Chelmsford Prison. So, ultimately, is there political accountability that needs to happen here rather than operational accountability?
Well, clearly there's a system that's not working. As I said, under the last government, there were 17 people accidentally released every single month during that 5 years. And that hasn't been fixed yet by the current Labour government. So we need to do much deeper investigation and a complete change of the system. There was emergency measures that were released by the Justice Secretary after the last release. That clearly hasn't been effective. So we need to look again.
Could you just repeat those questions? Those figures, because I want to ask Julia Lopez if she accepts the figures that you cited under the last government. Did you say
17 persons every month were released unintentionally during the last government?
Do you accept those figures? Do you recognise those figures?
I'm afraid I don't have the number. I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
So it happens. It happens, which comes back to the point that David Lammy made, that our prison system is in crisis. It was a crisis that they inherited.
Well, Gloria, as I said, we had a major prison building programme underway. And what Labour has done is effectively say, well, let's actually have early release for some very serious criminals, and that would...
that was going on under your government.
Well, as I said, we had the major prison building programme underway, which got hit by a pandemic. It would have delivered by now if we hadn't had that. I don't want to try and make excuses. I'm just telling you the reality of it. And Labour's response to that has been to have an early release programme, which is releasing some extremely serious criminals onto our streets. And that's not the option we would have taken.
There'll be people screaming at the television now that one of the fundamental problems here is that these aren't our criminals. These are people who are coming into the country who we didn't need to let into the country. We didn't need to put up in a hotel in someone's local community for only them to then go on and commit some sort of heinous crime that ends them up in a prison. Many people will have been thinking, why weren't these people immediately detained and immediately deported?
So the Home Secretary has been very clear on foreign national offenders, and we have sped up the process for deportations. Now, I think that's the right thing to do.
Not everyone that comes have been deported under the one-in, one-out scheme.
So under foreign national offender deportations, it's more than 5,000 people have been deported.
Those aren't small boat migrants, though. In terms of small boat migrants who've been... Yes, but they will have come in many, many different ways. Many of them will be living here for years and then go on to commit a crime. 5,000 have gone. People will be concerned that we're getting on for 40,000 small boat migrants this year alone. It looks like it could be the highest year ever of small boat arrivals. And there have been many recorded cases of those small boat migrants then committing crimes. I think I'm right in saying that it's less than 100 or around 100 who have been deported of the almost 40,000. I mean, that is a pitiful number.
It's part of a package of measures. And of course, the returns deal to France is a pilot deal. We're just getting it started. We're proving the concept. Each month, more people have been returned than the previous month. I appreciate it's not enough. 2 people were returned to Rwanda. They had to be paid for the privilege.
But it was a deterrent, and it's reported that you are looking at alternative countries for
we are.
For processing.
We're looking at alternative countries that can work, and Rwanda
that was
we had something ready to go, right? And then you did the same when it comes to accommodation as well, where now you're realising that actually you do have to look at military barracks. And there's a thing, Labour has effectively, I've asked Yvette Cooper this very question in the House of Commons, how many of the small boat arrivals have actually been deported? And you never get any answer. What they're trying to do, they're taking the low-hanging fruit when it comes to deportations and using this to have a figure for the overall number of deportations. We're completely ignoring the fact that they're not doing anything to solve the small boats crisis. And we know that we are on record levels now of people coming over, and there's just no progress here.
So I reject the fact that we're not doing anything about the small boats crisis. The Borders Bill that's going through Parliament at the moment has strong new powers for the police. It allows us to go after people that are advertising illegal jobs. It goes after people that are advertising on social media crossings. It allows us to use counter-terror powers against the people smuggling gangs. That is on top of the work we're doing with the French and the Germans on the continent to go after the boats. You will have noticed, I hope, that in the last 2 weeks there haven't been any small boats crossings. Now, that might be the case because we've done a lot of work over the summer to put these measures into place.
The wind speeds in the channel have been very, very high over the course of the last 2 weeks.
If you compare it to recent years, there were lots of crossings in October and November, and we have had no crossings in the last 2 weeks.
What are the figures for the year?
There have been many days where the wind has been too high.
So the highest year in terms of crossings was 2022 under the last government. We're not on track to beat that at the moment.
So far. If neither of you can get a grip on this, your government and now your government, isn't it inevitable that we will see neither of your leaders in number 10 in 4.5 years' time? It will be Nigel Farage, because arguably, what does he have left?
What is his plan? I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? I mean,
but if they say, well, we tried this lot, it didn't work. We're trying this lot. We don't know if it will work.
It will work.
But if it doesn't, do you accept that if you don't sort this problem, if you don't secure our borders, it is absolutely ludicrous, and people will think, we're not even in control of our own borders. Somebody else, a different leader, a different person and party needs to be in number 10.
I don't accept we can't solve it. I don't accept that we're not doing everything we can to reduce illegal immigration and keep our borders secure. I talked about some of those measures. The numbers are coming down. That pilot scheme is improving. And deportations are much higher than they were under the last government. On asylum hotels, which is a disaster, we have roughly half as many as we had under the peak of the last government. So things are moving in the right direction.
Most of that decline did come under the last government, though.
And we have a new plan to put people into military accommodation, which, as a former military man myself, I think is a much more appropriate place for asylum seekers to be.
Thank you so much.